I sat by the window of my downtown apartment, the morning sun glinting off the skyscrapers like shards of gold. My fingers traced the delicate pattern of my silk blouse as I scrolled through my emails, pretending the quiet hum of the city didn't echo the chaos in my chest. It had been years since anything from home unsettled me, but today my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in months. Mom.
Karen.
My mother. The message was short, almost casual, but it hit like ice water. Emily, I think you need to know, Sophia and Ryan are engaged. I froze. My coffee cup trembled in my hands, leaving a faint ring on the glass table. Ryan. My Ryan. The same man I had loved with every bit of my heart, the one I thought I would marry someday. And my mother, she had convinced him that my sister was better for him. Stronger. Smarter. More suitable. A bitter laugh escaped me, soft but unsteady. I leaned back, letting the sunlight wash over my face, trying to remember the calm I'd built in my life, the independence I fought so hard to earn. Yet here it was, slapping me in the face, the past I thought I'd left behind. I closed my eyes and inhaled, the scent of roasted coffee filling the apartment. I could feel the tension in my shoulders, the tug-of-war between anger and pride. I had worked too hard, achieved too much, to let this shake me entirely, but the truth stung. More than I'd ever admit aloud. And for the first time in years, I realized I wasn't just confronting the engagement. I was confronting them. My mother, my sister, and the memories of a love that wasn't meant to be. At least, according to Kay, I remember the day it all began, like it's etched into my memory with sharp, unrelenting clarity. I was 23, freshly graduated, and full of dreams I thought my family would support. I had just introduced Ryan to Mom for the first time. I was nervous, adjusting the straps of my summer dress as Karen studied him with that calculating smile she always wore when she assessed people. "You're sweet, Emily," she said after a while, patting my hand in that condescending way that made my stomach twist. "But I think Ryan needs someone stronger. Someone who can really handle him. Someone like Sophia." The words hit me like a slap. Sophia, my sister, 2 years younger, who had always been the golden child, the one Mom adored, the one who could do no wrong. I stared at Ryan, hoping he would look at me the way he always did, the way he used to look at me in secret when no one was watching. But he didn't. There was hesitation in his eyes, a flicker of doubt that Mom had planted without even trying. I felt my hands tremble, and a lump rose in my throat. I wanted to scream, to tell my mother that she had no right, that love isn't measured by strength or suitability. But I didn't. I couldn't. My voice had betrayed me too many times before, cracking when I needed it most. Then I remembered my grandmother's words from years ago, her voice soft but firm. "Emily, some battles aren't won by arguing. They're won by walking away and proving them wrong in the life you build for yourself." That evening, I packed a small bag, leaving behind the suffocating house filled with whispers and judgment. I moved to a tiny apartment across the city, with nothing but my laptop, a few books, and my grandmother's worn-out pendant, the little charm she had given me for luck. It became my talisman, a quiet reminder that I wasn't powerless, that I could still define my own story. I cried that night, letting the hurt and betrayal wash over me, but for the first time, I also felt a spark of resolve. I wasn't going to fight my mother or compete with Sophia. I was going to carve my own path, in my own way, on my own terms. And one day, they would see me, not the little girl they thought they could manipulate, but a woman they couldn't ignore. The first few months were brutal. My tiny apartment smelled perpetually of instant coffee and old carpet, and the hum of my laptop became the soundtrack of my life. Every night, I stayed awake past midnight, teaching myself everything I thought I didn't know. Marketing, design, negotiation, skills I had assumed I'd learn gradually, but now, survival demanded I master them fast. I remember the nights I sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop on my knees, staring at spreadsheets and client emails until my eyes burned. I wanted to give up more times than I cared to admit. Self-doubt crept in like a shadow. Who are you to think you can succeed on your own? But each time, I touched the pendant my grandmother had given me. Its weight was grounding, a quiet reminder that I was capable, that I had fought too hard to quit now. Then I met Olivia Carter, a seasoned consultant in digital marketing. She became my mentor without hesitation, recognizing a spark in me that no one else seemed to notice. "Emily," she said on our first Zoom call, "stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop waiting for permission. The world isn't going to hand it to you, you have to take it." Her words stung and inspired all at once. I dove in. I pitched to small clients first, barely making ends meet, but each victory, no matter how small, was intoxicating. My first paid project came with just enough to cover rent, but I remember jumping up in my apartment, laughing and crying at the same time. Then came bigger projects, then more, and slowly, the life I'd envisioned started to take shape. I learned to mask my success from my family. Modest social media updates, careful stories, nothing too revealing. I didn't want them thinking I needed their approval or their pity. Every email I sent, every call I made, was a step toward independence. I built a small but profitable consulting business, slowly gaining recognition in my field, earning a reputation that made strangers respect me more than my own family ever did. Financial independence was just the beginning. The real triumph was reclaiming my voice, learning that I didn't need validation from anyone but myself. I could be proud of my accomplishments without waving them in anyone's face, yet secretly, I felt a growing satisfaction, knowing that one day, they would see. One day, they would realize the strength they once dismissed. By the time Ryan and Sophia's engagement became a whisper in my life, I was already moving in a world of my own making. I had a thriving business, loyal friends, and mentors who believed in me. I had built something that was completely mine, untainted by their judgment. And somewhere deep inside, I knew the moment would come when I could show them exactly what I had become. I had survived their manipulation, their favoritism, their judgment. I had grown stronger, not by competing, but by creating my own empire, quietly, meticulously, and with unwavering resolve. And now, the woman who once trembled at a mother's words had become a woman who could command a room, inspire respect, and, most importantly, choose when and how to confront the past. The invitation was deliberate, almost casual, a brunch at my downtown loft. Ryan and Sophia didn't know I lived here, that my life had become something entirely separate from the one they assumed I was leading. And Mom, well, she still thought I was struggling, a girl who needed guidance, a daughter who could be corrected. The morning of, I walked through my apartment, adjusting the silk blouse I loved for its simplicity and elegance. The loft was a reflection of years of hard work, floor-to-ceiling windows letting in golden light, abstract art I'd bought from a local gallery, my books lined meticulously along the shelves. Every corner whispered the story of my independence, my battles, and my victories. When they arrived, the hesitation was immediate. Sophia's smile faltered as her eyes scanned aloft, taking in the polished hardwood floors, the designer furniture, the subtle hints of wealth and taste. Ryan's jaw tightened. He knew, somewhere deep down, that the girl he once loved wasn't the fragile one he'd left behind. And Mom, her eyes flickered between disbelief and recognition, the smug confidence she had always worn slipping for just a moment. I greeted them with a calm, almost serene smile. "Welcome," I said, my voice steady, soft but commanding. "Please, make yourselves comfortable." We moved to the brunch table. I poured coffee, careful to notice the hesitation in their gestures. The conversation began light, small talk, but I let it linger only long enough to build the tension. Then I spoke. "I wanted you to see this, to understand what I've been doing all these years," I said, gesturing to the loft, my business awards on display, the contracts, the client letters stacked neatly on the counter. "I've built a company from scratch. I'm financially independent. I don't answer to anyone, except myself." The silence that followed was deafening. Sophia's hands twisted nervously in her lap. Ryan's eyes darted around, disbelief in every line of his face. And Mom, she leaned back, lips pressed tight, her pride and assumptions collapsing in real time. "I know what you all thought," I continued, my voice softening slightly, "that I needed guidance, that I couldn't survive without approval, that I would settle for less than I deserve. But I've never been weaker than I am now, strong in ways none of you saw coming." Ryan's throat moved, a silent attempt at words, but I pressed on. "I'm not the same Emily you thought you knew. I've fought, I've learned, I've grown. And this," I gestured at the loft, "the proof of my hard work, the life I had carved out, is exactly what I am capable of." I didn't need permission to succeed. And I certainly didn't need anyone to decide who I should love or who I should be. The reactions were unmistakable. Sophia's smile had vanished, replaced by shame and uncertainty. Ryan's eyes held regret, the knowledge that he had been swayed by others' opinions. Mom's posture was rigid, her carefully curated control slipping, revealing vulnerability that she never allowed anyone to see. For the first time, I realized the power in simply being unapologetically myself. No explanations, no accusations, just the undeniable truth of what I had achieved and what they had underestimated. After the silence settled, I finally let myself lean back in the chair, folding my hands calmly in front of me. The air was thick with tension, but I felt unshakable. For the first time, the balance of power wasn't dictated by anyone else's whims. It was mine. "I've heard a lot of assumptions over the years," I began, my voice steady, "about who I am, what I want, and who I should be. And I've realized something important. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about setting conditions for respect and accountability going forward." Mom's eyes narrowed, a reflexive scowl forming, but I didn't flinch. "Karen," I said, meeting her gaze directly, "if you want to be part of my life, it has to be as an equal, not a judge. You must respect my choices without trying to control them. No more manipulation, no more comparisons. I've built this life with my own hands, and I will not let anyone undermine it." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, but I could see the flicker of recognition in her eyes. Change is never easy. Then I turned to Sophia. "Sophia, I know this is complicated. You've been told you're better for him, but that's not your measure of worth. You need to find your own path, not the one someone else scripts for you. Pursue your passions, not a life you think others expect. Learn who you are outside of comparison, because that is where real strength comes from." Sophia's voice shook slightly. I didn't mean to hurt you." "I know," I replied softly, and there was truth in that. "Compassion didn't mean weakness." I continued, "And Ryan, you have to understand that love isn't about convenience or pressure. It's about respect, honesty, and choice. I hope you both find happiness, but it cannot come at the cost of manipulation or thinking someone's worth is measured by someone else's standards." The room was heavy, yet charged with a strange energy, the first honest confrontation in years. I wasn't just addressing them. I was redefining the terms of engagement, showing that respect and growth weren't optional, they were necessary. Finally, I let myself add a touch of personal closure. "I'm willing to maintain relationships, but only if these conditions are honored. You've all seen what it means to underestimate me. Now, I expect you to see what it means to be accountable, compassionate, and self-aware. That's the only way forward." There was no argument, no fight. Just the quiet acknowledgement that the old dynamics had shifted irrevocably. I felt the weight of control settle in my chest like a mantle, but it wasn't heavy. It was empowering. For the first time, the past shadows didn't dictate my present. I could see clearly. Boundaries weren't walls. They were the blueprint for mutual respect and growth. I sipped my coffee, noticing the aroma more keenly than ever before. The morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the loft, the life I had built, and the path I now set before them. Compassion tempered with firmness. It was the only language they would understand, and the only one I needed to speak. Weeks passed, and slowly, the changes I had demanded began to take root. Mom, in quiet moments, called me, not to criticize or advise, but to genuinely check in. Sophia started volunteering at a local community center she had once dreamed of joining, discovering a passion she had buried beneath expectations. Ryan, though distant at first, found a way to support Sophia without pressure, learning the lesson of respect I had tried to teach years ago. Watching these shifts unfold, I felt a calm satisfaction. Not pride born of revenge, but a profound understanding of resilience, my own and theirs. I realized that the pain I had endured, the heartbreak, the feeling of betrayal by the people I loved most, had been a crucible. It had forged a version of me I wouldn't trade for anything, a woman capable of standing alone, of creating her own success, of setting boundaries that demanded respect and honesty. One evening, I held the pendant my grandmother had given me years ago. It had been my talisman through sleepless nights, moments of doubt, and battles both silent and loud. Now it felt lighter, not because the journey was over, but because I had carried it with purpose. It reminded me of every lesson I had learned. Strength doesn't come from force. It comes from perseverance, self-belief, and the courage to define your own life. I walked to the window, looking down at the city's skyline bathed in golden twilight. The streets below buzzed with lives that would never intersect with mine, yet each one reminded me of the vastness of possibility. I had survived manipulation, favoritism, heartbreak, and self-doubt. I had not only survived, I had thrived. And in that moment, I spoke quietly, not to anyone but myself. I am enough. I am strong. I am mine. It wasn't a declaration of victory over others. It was a promise to myself, an acknowledgement of the woman I had become. The Emily who once trembled at her mother's words had transformed into a woman who could choose her battles, set her terms, and embrace life fully, unapologetically. The journey wasn't over. Growth never is. But I had arrived at a place of grace and power that no one could take away. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely free, free to love, free to succeed, and free to simply be the woman I had fought so hard to become.